as an academic sociologist with one foot in academia and one foot in communities, this kind of information is really crucial. Now, it's national level because it's the census derived largely, but let me just highlight, I think, so as you were speaking, some of the really important elements, I think, for the kind of work I do that came out, namely that older people are now increasing. We know that, livability, but what is the implication for their housing needs in the family context of which they take a part? Then you have some rural-urban distinctions, which is also very important for us. The fact that you're showing trends like in single-headed households, especially female-headed households, is again important. And many of your points show shifts, over time, which is very significant because you're bringing out new developments. There's still a minority expression, but they seem to be growing and are important. And I think that's one of the definitely takeaways we can have here. The point about nuclear families are still the dominant form, father, mother, children, but they are decreasing in number as multifamily or extended family households are increasing. That's a very important element. So, and there are many other points that one could cite here. But let me go on to what my major concerns are is what does this tell us, or how can it help with research or understandings of the urban poor situations, right? And because in terms of housing, the ones who are most needy are the bottom 60%. And I think as together with Dr. Ballesteros and many of you in PIDS, we already established that as very early on, but definitely in the National Housing Summit in 2014. It was very clear that the bottom 60% at that time of the population really could not afford any of the housing that was being promoted, right? And we're still faced by and large in that situation. So I'm looking at kind of the bottom part, maybe the 40%, 30% who are in the informal sector. And they are really where the poor are concentrated. It is, of course, true that over time, many of them been here for 4 generations now. They have improved their lives, so some of them are better off than others. We still have the bottom 10, 20% who are in serious, real difficulties, usually female-headed households with 4 or 5 children who have no partner and therefore, and cannot work because of the number of children who are young. So that's one set, but then you have other gradations. And I think the housing sector has to recognize that even when in the informal sector, there are ranges. I think they know that, but often they don't really talk to the communities to see who are they and how do they determine what's the local definition. Every community is really different, right? And in the end, if you're working on a housing plan that fits it, you have to get to the community level. And let me add there that housing is not houses, right? It's not apartment dwellings. Housing is the whole community setting, environment of the economy. How are people working? Where they're getting their income? Where they have access to social services, health services, and so on. Right, where their alliances are that see them through every day because they rely on one another to improve their lives. All right, so housing must be seen in a much larger context. It's not just the infrastructure part, right? And so that's what. Let me focus then on what do we need to understand about low income, especially informal settlements. Low income, informal, they're kind of connected one with the other. But let's look at informal settlements. The distinction between informal settlers and those who are poor, but often in lower level jobs, security guards, and so on. They have formal sector payments, where informal also have that, but a great majority are self-employed, working at home on consignment, and working. This is mainly women also. working as caregivers, laundresses, and then repair, the men in repair services of cell phones and TVs and whatnot. All right, so what we're looking at is informal sector has all the problems of the low income people except security of tenure. They are always in jeopardy of being evicted. And that has been the history of informal settlements. And that is why when they organize, and many of them have organized very effectively, they begin, that is what they insist on. We want to remain here. Why? As all of you have already said, because the jobs are here, because the source of incomes are here. That's not just for men, but also for women. In the informal economy, according to Dole, I think it's 53% of Metro Manila are informal workers. And of the 53%, I think they say 80 to 85% are women. And often and when we've been doing a study at IPC Ateneo of the informal economy, which connects with the formal, in and out, it's systemic. What we're finding is from the women's side, well, let's start with the men's side, it's sueldo, it's a job, right? Trabajo. That's how they frame their need, what they're looking for. For the women, it's by and large pagkakakitaan, ways of earning, to supplement or to so that my household, I can feed my children, and I have some form of security if my husband or partner is not able to earn that particular day or week or month. So it's a very household economy, but with different kind of orientations. Of course, what we're finding is that the younger, they've been there 30, 40 years, many of them. So many of their younger children or adult children have gone to college. In fact, that is almost the number one aim after having enough food, of course, no, is para makatapos lang muna yung mga anak ko. And I think in some communities where they have really focused on that and have managed to stay and continue earning precariously, maybe low income, but savings and small scale and moving up, they make sure their kids go to school, finish, because then those girls, young adults, often will continue in the community and begin to serve it in much more organized way. They know how to reach government agencies, how to fill out forms, etc. Or they may be the ones now who would like to move into more apartment type dwelling outside, but they will still connect because the reason they were educated, the concept was they will help their younger siblings and their parents in older age, right? So one has to understand the lifestyles of people, and the tenure security issue is very much related to housing. As we know, urban informal settlements have improved gradually over time, but most of them will not invest in the houses more than necessary because if they feel they may be evicted. If they're pretty sure they can stay, they keep improving. And you look, there are now concrete structures and so on. And before they used to only buy things that you could move if you're relocated, but now they're really investing in housing if they assume that maybe they'll somehow be able to stay. So the vast majority want to remain there because it makes total economic and family access to resources sense. So in this, one has to look at one thing is, even though your study, of course, was not set up to look at particular the bottom 40, 50%. I hope that the next time when you carry this for more studies, you will begin to disaggregate by social class or by income classes, but also by levels of poverty within the so-called poverty sector, and by age, because it's the age that is now making a difference in the young people who have better education than their parents. In the context of what are those livelihoods that should be recognized when it comes to housing, that one, in informal economy, your house or your home where you live is also your workplace. Whether you are a welder or whether you are doing manicuring or a barber or any of those kinds of things, fixing tires. It's the household that is also the workplace, right? All right. So when people get relocated, then they may have a house to 40 kilometers away, but they don't have the income, as we know very well. And it's very hard to reestablish incomes. And that's why they want to stay where they are, because they already have alliances and work systems. They simply have to be recognized as being productive. If you look at, I mean, all the surveys we've done show they're all working sometimes 12 hours, 16 hours a day, double jobs, triple jobs, earning here, very flexible, finding opportunities where they can in order to survive. But they're considered, because they're, quote, illegal, they are not even, I think their income, their products are not generally recorded in the GDP, right? And yet they are an amazing workforce for the city. In fact, as they will often point out, if it weren't for us, the middle and upper classes who enjoy their lifestyles would not be able to survive, because where would they get their maids? Where would they get their security guards? Where would they get, the ones who do manicuring coming to their house, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a great connection between what the informal economy people do to support the formal sector, middle and upper classes. The city could not survive without them. The sad part, of course, is that their earnings are very low and very irregular. And so housing has to take that, or housing agencies recognize that the earnings are not regular, but they are earnings. And so adapt the bureaucracy to their lives rather than forcing their lives to fit into a bureaucratic arrangement which was set up for the formal sector of regular earning, may sweldo, may benefits baka, and certain amount of job security. Doesn't work that way. Some of them have them, but most do not. Does it mean that something's wrong with them? No, something's wrong with the systems that cannot seem to accommodate them. I know there are efforts now, of course, to try to respond. And that's what we have to look when we say, as I think Dr. Ballesteros said, are we doing the right thing? Why do we have such a huge housing backlog? And housing backlog is not just houses. It's responding to people's needs. People are, in fact, upgrading their own places. As they say, kami naman ang nagtambak dito. And then they say we have no rights, etc. No? Oh, sorry. Ignore that cell phone. I don't know where it is. All right, so we have to look at male and female income and the concept of home. So social psychologists are looking into people's sense of home. It's important to them. Sorry, let me get this. All right, home is where my family is, where my neighbors are. The surroundings may be slums, as we've seen them, but we are together here, and this is home. That concept is a very crucial thing, because home will not be home 25 kilometers or 40 away when walang trabaho. All of them are distributed all over the place. They have to reconstitute their alliances. Okay, so what am I saying? So what are some of the implications, more of the policy implications, right? Let's look at how have they solved their problems. As they say, I think we should recognize the informal settlers are not the problems, really. They're the solutions. They have been making solutions for 50 years or more, by doing their own upgrading with very little support from the government. In fact, really oppressive attacks against them when they're nagtitinda sa kanto, the woman who's learning and living, and then she's illegal, so she has to pay the police to stay online, to stay on site, et cetera, et cetera. The recognition that these are citizens of society who are productive. Their migrants came because they are aggressive. They're looking for work. In social sciences, we say they have agency. Look at their agency. And that's what I think policymakers have to see them as resources and as partners for the participatory processes. There's the only way that together with government and other civil society and themselves groups can be solved. There's evidence of this all over the place. NGOs and groups have worked with POs, and we can give you lists. We have given DSHUD lists of places where people themselves have created the housing, sometimes with private sector sources, sometimes from local government. So for PH, you have to say, again, it's high rise. Can you imagine if your source of earning is you collect plastic bottles, which is now a big waste management collection in urban poor neighborhoods, earning income, lots of income sources like that, collecting plastic bottles. Where are you going to put them? On the 23rd floor, the 18th floor? You're going to carry them up? What about the sari-sari stores that are always the biggest source of income for women? Who's going to buy if you're on the 11th floor? How many people can you access? You have to be on the ground. You have to be where there are people who buy, right? So look at the real economy, and LGUs can be very important here. And I think they have been coming in with much more support. And maybe here national government has to enable LGUs to provide the connections with the local community. Well, I guess time is up, but let me, I guess finally, I have to say, let us all think, what is the city? You know, when I open the Inquirer on Saturday mornings, if you still read the paper, and see all the ads for very high class subdivisions, beautiful all over the place, why Manila is so wonderful, but never do they talk about, at least on Saturday, what about the 35% informal settlements plus another 20 who are in the low income formal sector? What about they are the people? A city is not infrastructure and houses and cement. A city is people. And one has to understand it. There are people who are citizens who are striving, but one has to listen to them. I was very glad, I'm really closing, the Dr. Roberta at the beginning, I think, said, monitor, 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 or well, somebody said that. And what we're saying, yes, listen, listen, listen. That's how we explain monitoring. When you monitor, you're really listening. You're seeing the changes, but do that with communities together, because as partners, it's much better than they're if they know it's in their interest, they're not going to lie, for your benefit. They're going to find out what is needed to solve the problems of the people they know. And that's what we mean by co-knowledge generation. That it's a collective effort. And finally, let me say, one of the reasons I'm very glad to be in a session like this is you see the whole national situation in housing and so, but as an academic and sociologist, anthropologist, you try to break it down into what does it mean for people, generally, the people. And then if you're working with NGOs and POs, you say, how do these data, how can we translate it so that it can be used by them and they understand it? How do we get communications people to reinterpret in Filipino or whatever language the most important parts of these findings that relate to them so they can develop what is their data set, so that when you monitor, they're your partners also in monitoring. Well, so that I think is my final statement. Let's ask ourselves, what is the city? The city is its people. And the people, if there's 60% who are not being attended to through decent services and housing, something is really wrong with the way we are planning. So thank you.